to place or co-locate equipment on the pole at 345 Castleton. It is currently a Crown Castle lease. It would actually be a sublease of a T-Mobile lease, but I will let Keith go into more detail. Keith Patansky is our village engineer who specializes in telecommunication. Let's see. Hi, Keith, take it away.
Recording in progress.
Thank you, Eric, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Just by way of background, in 1999, the Village of Pleasantville entered into the original lease agreement with OmniPoint. The tower was built shortly thereafter.
Recording stopped.
Several carriers have since come on, so there's a total of 5 carriers.
Recording in progress.
Sorry.
Currently on the tower: T-Mobile, Sprint, Metro PCS, Verizon Wireless, and T-Mobile, Sprint, Verizon Wireless, Metro PCS, and AT&T. Now, Dish Wireless LLC wishes to come on the tower. Linda from Crown is here to tell us a little bit about what that's going to look like. There's a proposed third amendment to the lease agreement between the Village of Pleasantville and T-Mobile. The threshold issues tonight for the board are whether or not you're willing to entertain Crown/Dish's request to allow Dish to come on as a sublet under T-Mobile's lease. So effectively, Dish would be piggybacking on T-Mobile's lease, or whether or not the village would require Dish to do what all the other carriers have done, which is enter into a separate ground lease with the village. The village, of course, owns the property, and the way it's structured is each carrier has a ground lease with the village, and then each carrier sublet space on the tower from T-Mobile. So that is the threshold procedural question tonight. If the board wishes to move forward with Dish's request, then the next step would be for me as the village's attorney to review the third amendment, or if the board chooses to have a separate agreement between the village and Dish, draft a new lease agreement between the village and Dish, and begin negotiations with Dish. Of course, everything is subject to SECRA, the State Environmental Quality Review Act. There is really no zoning here because the tower is already existing. So if this lease or lease amendment were to be finalized, Dish would be permitted on this tower by building permit only under the village's latest iteration of the wireless law. Any questions from the village board before I turn it over to Crown?
So, do you identify any reason that we would prefer to avoid a sublet? Or
the only reason I can think of, and I haven't done this analysis yet, is that the original lease agreement was presumably negotiated between the village and T-Mobile at that time, and it was in the context of a new tower. It's possible you might be able to get some more favorable terms now, since Dish, the tower is existing and Dish wants to come on. But by the same token, as Linda's going to get into, Dish's proposal is fairly minor. They're proposing a very small footprint within the existing compound. They're not extending the height of the tower. So I don't want to over-engineer it either. The village stands to benefit by having Dish on the tower because there'll be enhanced wireless coverage. There'll be an additional provider to help try and keep costs down for the average consumer in the village of Pleasantville, which I'm sure Linda's going to go into. So it's really, I'd have to do the analysis and look at the existing lease before I can make a recommendation in that regard. But I don't have an opinion one way or another at this point.
okay, but nothing leaps out as a reason one would.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Correct.
Linda, are you on?
I am, thank you.
All right, take it away, Linda.
Well, I appreciate, first of all, I want to say thank you. I appreciate your time this evening for letting me discuss this dish installation at the site. Dish is a new carrier. One of the reasons the DOJ allowed the T-Mobile Sprint merger to go through was because of Dish coming onto the site, just to kind of, keep these carriers very competitive. Dish is a small carrier. They don't have a lot of resources, as they're the new kid on the block, so to speak. And they're looking to install on as many sites as they can, as fast as they can. So with that said, Crown has stepped in and we're working with them to try to assist with this project to move forward in a timely manner. On this particular site, because of the terms of the lease, what they're looking to do, number one, is waive that direct ground lease provision, which means, per terms of the lease that we have now, they are supposed to work directly with the village for their ground space. They're only looking for 48 square feet of ground space. Typically what they need is 35, which is an area of about 5 by 7, but they go a little bit bigger to a 40 square foot, which would be a 6 by 8, just for room to move around. What they're going to do with that square footage is put one small cabinet, which will be within that fenced-in area. So there'll be no, pushing out of the fence or expanding that fenced compound area. On the tower itself, they're looking to install 3 small antennas. Those antennas will be within the canister. So there'll be no change in the appearance of the tower because of those 3 antennas. It's a stealth tower, and typically those they're a little bit they're more difficult to work with than the other towers, but they are going to not increase the height of the tower, and they will not be increasing the width of the tower. Those antennas are going to fit right inside the canister. So if you were to look at the tower or at the compound, the fenced-in compound, you wouldn't notice any type of a change. So that would be the first request, is to waive that direct ground lease provision and allow Crown to work directly with the village for this square footage. And then we'll sublease it to Dish. Dish is willing to pay $500 a month for this square footage. And Crown is will need to obtain consent from you folks to sublease to Dish. And that's basically the terms of the third amendment.
Okay. And why is it that it is desirable for Dish not to do this directly and instead to do it through Crown?
Well, number one, they don't have the resources. So if we don't work through Crown, you wouldn't be working through Dish anyway. They would have to hire their own vendor. They've got outside vendors that we work with. So then you would be working through Dish's vendor, which then would work with you folks as well as work with Crown. So if you work directly with Crown, you'd eliminate basically one participant in this project. Otherwise, you'd be working with Dish's vendor and Crown on this, because Crown would still need to move forward with your consent. So we would need consent to submit to this anyways. So it streamlines the process. And I think it moves the process along a little bit quicker, and Dish has come to us and they prefer to have Crown work on their behalf as opposed to an outside vendor working on their behalf. And because we're there at the site already, we understand the site, we understand the business. It just makes to streamline the process a little bit easier and quicker for everybody.
Okay. So the proposed third amendment says it's $500 a month and that shall not escalate.
Dish, exactly. Their payment does not escalate. Obviously the others all do. But like I said, the new kid on the block, they don't escalate their payment.
And
It's a straightforward payment.
forever?
Yes.
So why
That's how
would
Crown's getting paid also. Yes.
why is that reasonable?
Because again, they're the new kid on the block and they have limited resources.
Yeah, but inflation affects everybody equally, does it not?
I totally agree. I totally agree. But this is something that all the carriers have taken on. and just all the child companies have taken on it. Dish isn't working just with Crown, they're working, with the other, tower companies also, and it's,
I mean, the carriers are not enthusiastically encouraging competitors to come on and giving them a good deal. It's the middlemen who are giving them the good deal, right?
explain that a little bit more, please.
So I
I'm not sure,
assume,
I'm looking at the question.
I assume that T-Mobile, as the tenant of this tower, the lessee of the tower, right? Lessee, I'm sorry.
Let's see, yes.
Is not all kinds of enthusiastic about inviting new competitors into the market at a discount rate. I'm sure they're all kinds of enthusiastic about sharing the cost of a
To be honest
tower.
with you, I do think they know that they're the new kid on the block. No, I think they welcome the addition of another carrier. It would just be the way that Sprint T-Mobile merger went down. The DOJ only approved that because of the emergence of Dish.
All right, so I guess look,
just because of the competitiveness.
I don't mean,
Actually,
yeah, I get it. I don't mean to be ornery. I just don't know why we would agree to a permanent, never-ending lease that never escalates.
let me ask you this. And I don't know if I can, Crown may be able to step in and help out with that escalation. If I take this back and see if we can get an escalation, is that something that you would consider?
I think that would be good. What do you think, Keith?
I don't know
Well, I
what would
think-
happen, to be honest with you, but I'm happy to take it.
Look, I mean,
take it back to
if any
Crown
of us could
and work with
sign,
you folks.
if any of us could
Yeah,
sign
sure.
a permanent monthly rent that never changes in the history of our lives,
Right.
we'd be all over it.
Right,
Yeah, I think the basic question here is what is fair market value for this
Mhm.
space? And is what Dish is proposing in keeping with the rate that the other carriers are paying? Eric and I did a very quick back of the napkin analysis and tried to figure out what the price per square foot is
Mhm.
for some of the other carriers. And Dish wasn't too far off, but the
Right.
lack of annual escalations is obviously apparent.
right.
And as you pointed out, with inflation, that's only going to get worse with time. So I think it's a reasonable question to ask Dish and or Crown whether or not they'd be willing to adapt their proposal to bring their rent more in line with what the other carriers pay.
The thing is, because the other carriers their ground space is quite a bit, it typically runs about 250 square feet, as opposed to Dish, which is about 48. So it's quite a bit larger, so obviously they're paying more money because they're taking up more ground space.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
reasonable.
it's-
I don't argue with that at all. I just feel
You're concerned about the escalation, is that correct, sir?
it is what I'm concerned about. That's right.
Okay, let me go back and see if I can work with them and see if Crown will work. If Crown can hop in on this one and try to,
I mean,
work
honestly,
with some type of an escalation.
I mean, a reasonable escalation on $500 a month is not an eye-popping number that's going to affect any of our lives. It just feels like fundamental fairness.
Yep, nope. I will, I can take this back to Crown and see if
Okay,
they
great.
participate.
I mean, I think
and
in
assist with that
concept,
escalation.
adding a new provider in our market is great.
It is. It is. It helps with the, 9/11, public safety, fire, police. It helps with the constituents as far as, the broadband, Wi-Fi, cellular. So many folks now working remote, businesses and schools. It's just, this Wi-Fi is so important nowadays. Even in purchasing homes, what we're finding is a lot of folks, before they'll buy a home, they want to make sure that they've got good connectivity or they look elsewhere. So even in home values, it's tough to reach into that industry.
Understood and appreciated. Thank you. All right.
Keith, where do you recommend we go from here? We'll wait for word back from Linda on the price escalation.
Yeah, I think so. I think the ball's in Crown's court to come back with a revised proposal for the board's consideration. In addition to the rent, the other carriers have compensated the village for its out-of-pocket costs in connection with any leasing and zoning, so I would expect Crown/Dish to offer the same here. And there may be some technical considerations or questions that the board may have. For example, if Dish comes on, is there still additional capacity for any other carriers? I think all the major carriers are already on this tower, so it's not a huge consideration. But just as Dish recently received a license to operate, presumably in the future, known as Crystal Ball, there could be future carriers licensed in this region, and it would be helpful to know whether or not there's additional capacity there. I believe when the original tower was built, it was designed to accommodate T-Mobile and 6 other carriers. So we're probably pretty close to capacity, depending on the way that the antennas is, et cetera. So that's another thing that the board may want to take a look at. So in terms of the village's out-of-pocket expenses, I would hope to see that in Crown's revised proposal is not only willing to offer annual escalations, but also to cover the village's costs in connection with both the lease agreement and the building permit.
Keith, let me ask you, do you have any type of an estimate of what the out-of-pocket expenses may be?
We can take a look and see what it's been in the past and give you a general estimate.
Sure. Yep, they give me an idea of what they can be, and I'll certainly go back to Crown with that, as well as the an annual escalation and capacity for the carriers on that tower. Is there anything else besides those 3?
May I ask a question? I'm just, excuse me. Hi, I'm Michael Peppard. I'm just curious. We haven't talked yet about the benefits to either coverage or capacity for the cellular network. Is there any estimate of what the benefit will be for residents?
Well, I think we did mention that a little bit earlier. Basically, as you well know, it helps with the 9/11 public safety, fire, police, and to have it does help the more carriers you have. It drives down the cost to the constituents. So that is important, as well as it increases the service, the Wi-Fi, the cell service, the broadband, to schools, businesses, individual.
Right. No, I understand.
To
I just
customers that buy the Dish product, right, has no effect on other carriers.
And not necessarily. When you are with the carrier, that would be the first hit. Like if you're with Verizon, obviously you don't get off of the Verizon. But if that's that capacity, then it will go to the next one and the next one. So to have one loaded tower is important. It's better than having one tower. It's better to have one tower with 4 or 5 carriers than 5 towers with one carrier. And it works aesthetically, but also the way the carriers, the antennas work off each other. That is it works better that way than singular hopping from one tower to the next, to the next, to the next.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody have other questions? Sounds like we got a way forward. So thank you. Don't misunderstand. We're certainly pleased to have Dish's interest in the village, and look forward to working this out.
Very good. Okay, I think I'll go back to Crown with these 2 items. And Keith, you'll be my point of contact, and I will be in touch with you sometime in the next week or so with some of these answers. And I may have more questions, but certainly I'll come back to you with some answers also.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, folks. I appreciate your time and your consideration. And look forward to working with you folks in the future.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, be well, folks. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to drop
Have a
off.
great evening. Be well.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye, Keith. Bye, Linda.
Good
Bye-bye.
to see you.
You too now.
All right. Next up, Steve Rimkunis, Village Pool update.
Hey, Steve, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
And we can see
I
you.
guess you can hear me.
We can hear you and we can see you.
Okay. All right. So just to give you an update as to how we're moving along. right now, the drawings for the DOH are still being completed. We expect to be done within the next couple of weeks. So we should be filing for the DOH right around the end of the month to get the permits. DOH currently right now is taking approximately 12 to 16 weeks to review. That's for the first set of comments. So, that's going to take us into September, October-ish. So, just a quick reminder, we had a little bit of a delay waiting on the decisions to be made with the stormwater. So we are, a little bit, we're running a different schedule than what we had originally planned. But I think it's going to be to our advantage. So we're planning to go out to bid in the fall once we have the DOH permit. This gives us the opportunity. We're not going to start construction until fall of 23. So we need to get through this season and one more with the pool as it is.
So on that subject, Steve, when you and Eric and I chatted, we raised the question and just wondering if you view it as a logical way to go to bid and contract for this as soon as we reasonably can, with a shovel in the ground date of right after Labor Day 2023, with the notion that that would give a contractor an opportunity to start getting in the waiting line for anything that is supply limited, and perhaps the village can find storage space to provide for that contractor, if that makes sense. Does that sound like a logical thing to do? Potentially have somebody contracted, 6 months before the shovel's in the ground?
I do think that under current conditions, that's a great idea. We've been seeing slowdowns just waiting on equipment. Recently, there was a project that ended up getting canceled, and because the electrical components were 6 months delayed. So we couldn't even start the project even if we wanted to. With pool construction, we're stuck. We've got September to, the beginning of June, end of May to get your pool completed and up and running. We don't have time to wait 6 months for an electric panel, and we don't want to start construction and end up that you don't have a pool, right? So the concept of getting bid awarded in late fall or so gives the contractor plenty of time to get his submittals together, go through the whole submittal process and order the items and get past this long-term, delay in getting materials.
All right, so can you spin out what that schedule looks like? You submit to DOH.
Well, we should be submitting to the DOH hopefully at the end of the month.
Okay, so that's end of June. DOH responds in 3 to 4 months, right?
Right, so hopefully by the end of October, we'll have comments. I would add just another month because they always have comments. We have to go back and forth a little bit. There's not going to be any major comments, but there'll be something, and just, everything takes time with them. So we'll be able to go out to bid, near the end of the year, November, December, and then have, go through your award process, which is probably another month or so. So hopefully we can award the contract in the end of January, it sounds like.
Okay.
If I did the math right in my head.
And so can we put out that request for bids with a schedule built into it that has any kind of incentives or penalties associated with meeting, exceeding, or failing at the schedule?
Yes, we can absolutely do that.
I mean, do you recommend that? I don't want to scare off bidders, but I also want, obviously, we had hopes that
right. Well,
clearly are not
the way
viable,
to not scare anyone off is to keep it balanced. Meaning if you punish them if they take too long, and you kind of reward them if they can get it done faster. And we can discuss that in more detail and pick dates that, work out.
But anyway, I mean, based on your advice in the past, it sounds as though if we had a contractor lined up in the winter with a contract that allows them to buy stuff and get paid for it in an incremental way that early, that should massively improve the chances of finishing on time, right?
Yes. I mean, I think the contractors would like that a lot, especially the way things have been going lately.
And how have things been going? So can you comment on what we're seeing in the escalation of prices?
Well, we're still seeing high prices. And most recently, I'm still seeing the prices go up. It's the same old story that's been going on lately. The supply chains are an issue, and when supplies are around, it's first come, first serve, and a lot of it is just, the prices are way up. You see it at Home Depot, just at the price of a 2x4. At one point, before this all started, you could get a 2x4 for under $3, and now you're getting them under $9 or around $8. That's the escalation right there. I like anyone else, I don't know what to say about any of that. It's we're still seeing it. It's still going up. And like I said, we had a project recently that they had to cancel the bid, because the price came in too high, and also there was the 6-month delay in getting materials. So it's still happening.
Yeah. So, but based on what you're seeing in the world now, if we gave somebody a potentially 6 or 7 month running start to get materials with a willingness to pay incrementally as they buy them, does that feel like it overcomes the problem, or?
I think it's a good approach to the problem. If you can get, if it's easier for everybody. If, when the salesman says, hey, you gotta wait 6 months, and the contractor can say, okay, fine, I'll wait, but I'm not paying that price. I want to pay a lower price. And they're more cooperative about it. Maybe that's beneficial. I don't know. I'm speculating on that, but I would think that it made things a lot easier on everybody.
So, but on recent bids that you've been involved in, I know you said the one about that had to be canceled, but in general, building a new pool, you're not getting contractors coming back and saying, wait till next year, I can't do this, I can't get the equipment?
No, that's, I'm not sure I completely heard you, but yes, that's, the experience has been that projects were canceled or rebid due to high costs and delays in material.
All right, and did you see any thaw in that? Is it getting better?
I haven't seen it get better yet. There's still a struggle going on. And I'm thinking, I do have another large project similar to yours, but a bit larger. The bids are coming in next week. So I'd be happy to, share that information with you and see what's going on in there.
Okay, so, and is the universe of bidders on that project potentially similar to the bidders for our project?
Yes. Yep, same players probably.
Okay, so that will be interesting to know. You'll know that in a week or two?
Yes, I believe the bid date is the 23rd.
All right. But our numbers on our side of the table, originally believed to be in the 2.8 million range, are now in the 4-point-something million range. Right?
Yes. Yep. I mean, that's it's not too far off from what we've been seeing. These two projects I was just speaking of that were canceled and postponed were both projected around 450. One came in at 860 and another one came in at 1.2 million. I mean, they were different, scopes of work, but similar
And is that
pricing.
driven not just by equipment and materials, but also by labor costs, or are labor costs fairly stable?
No, the labor has been fairly stable, I think. The smaller project, I think that the schedule was very tight. It was a lot tighter than the other one, which might have helped drive that one up. But for the most part, the labor didn't seem to be the problem.
Mr. Mayor, is Steve up to date on our discussions about flood remediation from last meeting?
He is.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, the short version of a long story about flood remediation is that the cost of the cure is probably greater than the cost of the disease. Right?
As a guest, I have no idea what the acronym DOH is.
Department of Health. The county Department of Health has to review and approve any plans for a swimming pool, and they give us a license every year and inspect us every year for our existing pool. You want to build a new pool, you pitch it over the transom and wait, as we've just heard from Steve, between 3 and 4
I
months.
was lost as to what that was.
Yeah, well, we are too.
It's an important piece.
And we know who it is. We're still lost. So sorry about that. All right. And then, of course, everybody's getting hammered at the same time with increased bond costs. So.
Yeah.
All right, Steve. What magic can you what magic powder can you shake over this project? That's what we hired you for, magic powder.
Well,
Yeah. I wish I had something. We're just going to keep pushing forward, and, unless we hear otherwise.
All right.
and then Steve, just I think one point to make is we've talked about value engineering the project, trying to find savings. Steve, do you want to just take a second to talk about, the fact that this is actually a rather simplistic pool project?
Right. And as far as pools go, we're not doing anything, extravagant or unusual. Everything is fairly simple, and there's not a whole lot we can take away. And even if you went away with some of the things, we talked about taking out the diving hopper and not making the pool so deep, something like that is really not an effective cost. Once we're digging a hole, it makes no difference if we go with an additional 2 feet, because the equipment's already right there. And, the digging is actually the easy part. That's about it. I mean, we started out with not going for the more expensive slide. We have a less expensive slide. It's 14 feet or 16 feet instead of the 19 to 20. So there's not a whole lot that we can actually dig out, and it's all a lot of basic concrete. PVC pipe. PVC pipe is, that's directly related to oil prices. So every time you see the gas go up, you know that the PVC pipe is going up. But that's it. I mean, we're not putting anything extravagant into the pool.
Right. And I think the reality of our current situation is we're seeing municipal projects out to bid that were cost estimated as late as November that are coming in 50% over cost estimates. So this is a very unique situation we're confronting.
Yeah, my experience has been higher than that as well.
Bite your tongue, Rem Kunis. All right. Well, you're pretty confident you can finish these drawings by the end of the month?
Yes.
Okay. So we look forward to hearing that, and then you submit them to DOH?
Yeah, I'll take care of that. Right.
Okay. Anybody else have questions, comments?
No, it seems like we just got to take it one step at a time.
Costs a lot of money to dig a hole and fill it with water.
Apparently.
All right, thanks, Steve.
All right, thank you.
And then just on the regulatory side, now that we're not doing the stormwater management, that regulatory process is simplified. It's a type 2, basically, in the secret process, but there is a wetland buffer that the pump house is within. So we'll talk about, that's a village code, so we can talk about the next steps on that end. But, you know, from what we're confronting with the Army Corps of Engineers, we've now certainly sliced that down.
Good.
Okay, Steve? Do you,
I'm sorry?
maybe for the benefit of the board, you should give the thumbnail sketch about the issue of the pool house and its relationship to the wetlands buffer. I'm sorry, the pump house.
Okay. Yes, the filter building, we're proposing a new filter building to house the equipment. And we're about, I think it actually worked out to be 22 feet encroaching into the wetlands boundary.
Now, so we say the wetlands boundary is what, 50 feet from?
The beginning of the street.
50 feet from the edge of the creek.
Right, and the issue here is the creek is under a parking lot, right? We're not talking about 50 feet from the edge of a natural creek, right? Yes?
That's correct, yeah. I mean, the creek is, there's many things encroaching into that creek.
So,
Parking lot on the other side, and,
Right.
you know, a good part of the parking lot still comes over it, yes, over the creek. And
so the issue is whether it is logical or helpful to move the pump house closer to the fence on the cottage school side to get farther away from the presumed wetlands buffer, which is in actuality at that point a parking lot, right? Have I got that right?
Yeah, so that's you know, all that grassy field is there right now. So it's just
moving the pump house
building's
wouldn't
gonna-
change its position on the grassy field, right?
I'm sorry?
The question is whether we slide it in its current position closer to the fence by the cottage school or keep it closer to the fence by the parking lot, right? We're not
Correct.
talking about sliding it deeper into the grassy field closer to the basketball courts, right?
That's correct. No, we go towards the fence line at
Mm-hmm.
cottage.
Are there
Okay.
issues with respect to flooding, depending on which of those positions you choose?
Well, we've designed the building to prevent flooding of the filtration equipment.
All right, so
we put the building,
Sheriff,
Nope.
can you see my screen there, Steve?
yes,
These are your drawings, right? So page 1 here, this is the filter room, right?
that's correct.
That's
And-
the one
and-
that's too close?
And that is the location you had designed it originally.
Right.
Right.
And you can see that dashed line is the wetland boundary.
Okay.
So almost going through the middle of the building.
So let me, right? That's this line.
Right.
Yes,
Now, we say wetlands boundary, there isn't anything wet here, right?
Correct.
This is the dumpster and the end of the parking lot, right?
well,
I mean, the creek has not emerged from its underground culvert yet at this point, right?
no,
It does it right
comes
here.
out right where you're
Right. This is
that's
where it
right there.
emerges, right?
That's the head wall of the creek.
Okay, so then the alternative would be this to slide it back, right?
Yep,
Okay, so from a functional or cost standpoint, 6 to 1 half dozen the other, right?
right.
From a utility of the site standpoint, it's nicer to have this area open, right? As
right.
opposed to the building kind of squarely in the middle and you have to go around
Lose
either
that
end,
space.
right?
Yeah.
True?
Yes.
So my take on this is, if there is a reasonable concern about moving it, we should. If moving it is not achieving anything because of the conditions that already exist here, we're better off leaving the way it is and addressing the encroachment by whatever administrative means we have. Right? Fair to say?
I agree with that.
You there, Steve?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I agree with what you're saying. I'm sorry, I thought you were asking the board.
Yeah, well, right. So from your standpoint, maybe this is a little out of your wheelhouse. Does this encroachment into the presumed wetlands buffer actually make any difference in this environment when we've already got a parking lot and blacktop and a dumpster pad and all of that that's been there for decades?
Right. No, I don't believe there's any impact at all.
Just seat of the pants, it doesn't seem like there is.
Right.
Okay.
This is the first I've seen these plans.
So Steve just did this
Oh, okay, yeah.
to address, because this issue came up about
Okay.
this is a village code
Yeah.
about the wetlands buffer.
Right. While we're looking at it, could I note the shade structures on the south side that I see there? They're labeled number 7. The proposed on all 3 of those. That I don't think they're necessary because that's all in the shade anyway.
These?
It's all shaded by these enormous, all the
I
enormous
mean, this
trees.
is not always shaded, is it?
No, not that one, but the three along the south border.
Unless Mario cuts down a bunch of trees, which he's threatening to do.
But that's not our. I thought it was not our property, is it?
This is
I
our
think it
property
is,
line
yeah.
here, right?
Yeah, it goes
I mean,
back.
we own,
No,
we
but
own
the-
a little bit beyond the fence, right?
Well, yeah, but the hill up.
think
I
so.
mean, with
We don't
the
own
way
a
it's
lot.
graded,
Right.
like the hill and the size of those trees. I mean, I go to the pool all the time. That's in the shade almost the whole day.
Okay.
That I'm just saying, if we're putting shade structures in, I think it would make sense to put them on the northern side of the other spots around
That
the
is
pool.
true.
Yeah. on
That's
the,
where it's sunny all day.
And Steve, is that a matter that has to be resolved now? Does the Department of Health care?
Well, the Department of Health doesn't care, but I think we did speak about that already. I think we're in the process of moving them around.
Okay, so do you know where you're moving them?
No, not exactly. And we'll send them to you for approval as well.
Okay. All right, let us know. Thank you for that, Mike.
Yep. As far as the DOH, as long as they're out of the 5-foot clear space, they're fine with wherever they'll be.
Okay.
So,
Come on, if you can make French fries over here, you could have a shade structure there.
Well, there's one there. Get save the front.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
Eric, have we covered the bases?
I think we have.
Okay. All right, thanks, Steve.
All right, thank
We
you.
don't want to keep you any longer. We want you to go back to your drawing and bang those out.
Yep, we'll get it done.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Right on time.
community table at the farm market. Yes, so as you may know, I'm the liaison to the farm market right now, and they reached out to me wondering if we would be interested as a village board of having a representative or two at their community table this summer. And they proposed a few dates, and I settled on the date of August 20th with them, which could be very hot, but you know, that's, right, we can dress appropriately. And you
What's
know,
the community table just for?
yeah, so the community table is a table that is not a vendor. It is a table that distributes information on matters of interest to the community.
Mhm.
And they thought that since you know there are so many issues going on in the village that people have questions about, and there's a couple thousand people every day that or every week that go to the farm market, maybe some village board members could be there. And I talked to the mayor about this, and he expressed support. Also a question about the no politics rule at the farm market. And so I went back to them, not that we would be bringing politics, but people might be bringing it to us, and that might affect the ethos. And the
Or
board.
anytime anybody asks a question, we could just say, sorry, no.
That's right, no politics. Yes, it's a philosophical thing. Is everything in a way, everything could be politics
Right.
or nothing, right? So I came back to them with that, and they said they were not concerned for a number of reasons. One of which is that it's not an election year, and when they say no politics, they mostly mean no campaigning, and none of us are up for re-election of any kind. And they also thought it would just be a good thing to try and see how it goes to answer
I think
questions.
it's a good idea.
And we could bring published materials. I was just thinking we could bring the pool flyers and anything else that we have. So if you're open to it and willing, we penciled in August 20th, and I told them that we would, I'm willing to commit to going the whole time, but we could also, depending on people's schedules, come in for an hour, come in for whatever works. I suppose if more than 3 of us were there at a time, we would have to notice.
You're right.
It would be a more meeting.
That's
of the
But we
board.
could notice it.
But if we had 2 at a time, then it would be.
I'll be away then, but I think it's a
That's
great
fine.
idea.
I may be away. I won't know for sure, but yeah.
And the other date they proposed, I would be away. And one of them was the music fest, and I thought that not a good
not a
date.
win.
So
August 20th is fine by me.
okay,
Count me in.
I'll be around.
all right, all right. Thank
All right,
you.
great.
Good.
So then, at 8 o'clock, the first thing on our agenda is the swearing in of the new police officer.
Do we want to take public comment?
And we'll just finish here, and then the PIA ambassadors. Then we have the continuation of the public hearing on the leaf blowers. I've talked to a couple of you. It's my thought that we open or reopen this hearing that has already been closed, hear what anyone has to say or what any of us has to say, and then close it, end it, with the thought that we reopen a public hearing, not necessarily long in the distance, but addressing a couple of questions that have arisen that I think are substantive, and one of them is whether commercial quality electric blowers are any quieter than leaf blowers, as some people have argued they're not. And so that raises the question whether we're really addressing the sound thing or not. But since my thought was we're not, we're I think generally, at least majority in the opinion that whatever we do wouldn't be taking effect until next spring anyway, that this strategy does not mean that we are not in a position to enact something soon. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm nervous about just putting it off indefinitely.
I get it.
I don't think that's. I think that commercial grade electric leaf blowers are quieter. I mean, I did some research after talking to you about that, and I certainly that's what I've been told in the past.
And if that turns out to be confirmedly true, I think that will be good for us to be able to report.
Right, and obviously, this is an imperfect compromise, right? That doesn't do.
That's right.
Don't we have evidence from other communities who've done this about whether it's had an effect or not? Who've done substantially what we're proposing
on reducing the noise level?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it varies. I think it's something that is, that is sort of a growing movement. Now it seems to be happening on the state level as well.
Which is interesting and helpful, that thing you sent indicating that there's some rebate opportunities for commercial landscape,
right,
which is good
there's
news, right?
3 laws that are being proposed on the state level right now, and that's the one that seems the most likely to pass the soonest. Another one would ban gas-powered landscape equipment from being sold in New York State, and then a third one would be a seasonal ban on gas-powered leaf blowers, similar to what we're proposing.
I don't think we should push this past one more meeting. Like, we cannot. It's like taking the Band-Aid off.
I feel like I feel like if we just sort of close the hearing and then sort of leave this, in an indeterminate state for the future. And then I also think then we lose the benefit of putting it off for a year Because the whole idea of having it, go into effect in the spring is that we pass the law now and then people have a year to prepare.
I'd rather either close it and pass the law now, or wait a week, close it then, wait till the next meeting, close it then, and pass the law then.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could afford to do one more round. We've had 3 at this point, but yeah, and I'm not going to be at the meeting after the next one.
I
will
won't
be at the
either.
next one, but
That's why you are.
Hey, you can move it to 2 meetings from now, and
Yeah.
I won't be here, and I'll be.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't frankly see the point. I feel like we've been through all this territory. I'd rather just move forward, and then if there's new evidence that comes up, we have a year to amend.
Well, at any rate, I don't see any reason to keep this public hearing open. We'll open it and then close it. We don't have it on the agenda to vote on it tonight, although it could be added by anyone's motion. If the group wants to put it on as it is at the next meeting in June,
2 weeks.
that's within everybody's power. I do personally think that there is a question to be addressed about whether we're really solving the noise problem. I say that in a way different from what I had up until now thought. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question then, sorry guys. The question then is, what would solve the noise problem? I think it would require something more dramatic, such as the original proposal, which was to ban leaf blowers altogether in the summertime. But then, we're gonna get a lot more pushback.
Yeah, we probably have to cancel all this, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, so we will continue that as we go.